talk about voter suppression. How about voter nullification? How about voter being ignored and purposely gotten rid of? Kansas election officials threw out thousands of ballots, of uncounted provisional ballots in November, mostly because the state had no record that those residents were registered voters. Some local election officials are now voicing concerns about instances of lost registrations from people who filled out applications on Secretary of State Chris Kobach's online site and at motor vehicle offices, but whose names never showed up on poll books, voter rolls, or even a list of people whose applications weren't complete. Some voters had date-stamped computer screenshots showing they successfully completed their voter registration. Kobach's office said in an email statement there was a technical problem with the computer system that handled voter registrations for the motor vehicle department, and that it is the office's understanding that the problem was corrected within a few days of its discovery in October. Russian hacking, anyone? Kobach's office then instructed county election officials to accept any paper printouts of an applicant's computer screen as proof that the person timely completed the registration form. I hope there was a note upon completion that the person should take a printout, because most people figured that everything was done and probably didn't take a printout. The smart ones who don't trust the system were the ones that took the screenshots. What troubles election officials is the increasing number of people in the last 2 election cycles who say their voter registration applications were completed online or at driver's license offices, but whose names never made it to a county election office to be added to local voter rolls. The extent of that problem is unknown. Wonderful. Douglas County was the only county AP found that specifically tracked provisional ballots cast by people in November who claimed their registrations were lost. Kobach's office has not yet compiled a statewide count of how many provisional ballots were discarded. Numbers that the Associated Press obtained from the county election offices and the League of Women Voters for the state's 11 largest counties show that 8,864 ballots cast were not counted, slightly more than 1% of votes cast in those counties. The reasons include lack of proper identification at polls, not providing proof of citizenship at registration, and not signing or filling out the advanced ballot envelope correctly. More than half of ballots were tossed out because there was no record of the person was a registered voter. Now, I don't know about you. Proof of citizenship? Really? So that means when you go to vote, you got to bring a birth certificate or a passport, because I can't think of any other proof of citizenship that would be accepted. So that's a picture ID and a birth certificate, or a passport that obviously has your picture, and because it is a passport, you had to supply your birth certificate. Kansas is something else. Among those who say their registration was lost is Gail Sims Holland. She registered during the summer using her passport as proof of U.S. citizenship when she and her husband got their driver's licenses after moving to Kansas. Her husband soon received notification of his polling site, but officials had no record that the 50-year-old Viola woman had even tried to register to vote. She again filled out the application, this time on the Secretary of State's website. Again, her registration was lost. I was calling back quite a bit to say, look, this is my right to vote, and I really want to vote. And they kept saying, you should get it in a couple of days, or you should have gotten it by now. And I am like, look, I need a confirmation. The Sedgwick County Elections Office allowed her to register again after the cutoff date for the November election because she had a copy of the voter registration confirmation. If I didn't keep a copy from my computer, I wouldn't have been able to show that I had done it, Holland said. After Douglas County election officials noticed an increase of people in that same situation, County Clerk Jamie Shrew decided to track those cases in November. If people said they registered online or at a motor vehicle office, but their names weren't in registration records, SHU had poll workers mark the outside of the envelopes used to seal provisional ballots. Douglas County documented 52 instances of lost registrations in which election officials determined the person had completed their registration in time. Because voters could prove they had registered, their ballots were counted. An additional 92 ballots from people who insisted they had registered but who didn't have proof were tossed. 4 ballots from voters who likely voted in a wrong precinct were partially counted. How do you partially count a ballot? I really wanted to track it down because it appears over the past few years increasingly we are having difficulties getting registrations done online or at the DMV, SHU said. All told, Douglas County discarded 710 ballots for various reasons. Johnson County, the state's most populous county, trashed 2,873 ballots. Sedgwick County threw out 2,194. Connor William Bob, a student at Kansas State University who filled out his registration at the Secretary of State's website, found out later that he wasn't registered. Sedgwick County Election Office counted his ballot because he had printed out the confirmation. Sedgwick County Election Commissioner Tabitha Lehman said Wednesday that her office has still not received the registration that Howland and Bob submitted online. Really? No. What happened was they got them and they deleted them. It did seem we have some hiccups on the online registration process, Lehman said. You talk about voter suppression, that was voter nullification. We need to go on a national voter registration system so that people come in and register nationally. Now, I'm not saying that the same thing couldn't happen with there being a glitch in a national system, but at least you would have more confidence in the fact that on a national level, there would be a lifelong employees running the damn thing, and you wouldn't have masses of these voters that had their records disappear. It was obviously a good thing that some of these people took screenshots of their registration. Otherwise, even though they did everything that they were supposed to, it was the state's obligation and fault that they weren't able to exercise their right to vote. The one that really gets me is the husband and wife that registered at the same time using the same documentation. The husband got his, but for some reason the wife didn't get hers. I wonder why.